What's up, everybody? It's Joe from TRS Fishing. Today we're going to be talking about how we set up our drifts, a little bit of the technology behind it, terminology, and the how-tos. Alright, so starting off, usually what we have, let's say this is our top of the water right here, right? And then we have our bottom. Like that right there. Okay, so with conventionally throwing a line in the water with a weight on it, what happens is you have your line coming down and it either stops there if you have enough weight, either stops right there if you have enough weight, presentation's up like you want, not yet, or if you don't have enough weight, it's going to go with the flow of current. So the current is going this way. So when we add the drift fishing method with the float fishing, if we throw that into the equation, what we have is we have our float right like that, and we have our line coming down, and instead of it sitting at the bottom, we get something that looks like that with our presentation right here, whether it be a bead or egg sac or whatever you have yet. So how do we get this to stay as vertical in the water column as possible? Well, we're going to introduce split shots. Every so often along this line, we're going to have some split shots. As the further we go up our line, the higher the mass of the split shots. Alright, so we start down here with the little ones and work our way up to the bigger ones. What this should look like is like a backwards J in the water. The current's pushing this down, and what that ends up doing is pushing the presentation. Let's make a little fish here. Ooh, look at that. Alright, so we got a little fish there, right? That fish is going to see that presentation before they see anything else. So that current, again, is coming this way. It's pushing that right towards the fish. Now, most fish, steelhead and trout anyway, are going to be feeding in the lower half of the water column, which, let's say this is 6 feet deep, just for giggles. That leaves us with a whole 3 feet in this area, what we'll call the strike zone. So a lot of the times, like I said, that's where you're going to find your majority of fish feeding. Now, they do sometimes feed up top and in the middle of the water column. However, a lot of the times when you see steelhead come up and hit the top, what is really happening is there is something suspended just below the surface of the water, and when they come up and hit it, they break the surface. Trout, I mean, some steelhead, well, they will come up to hit top water presentations, but obviously with drift fishing, we're going to focus down here. So next we're going to go into a little bit of the hardware of the situation. But that is pretty much what you want it to look like in the water column right there. All right, we're going to go get a little bit more of the technical stuff here. Huge element, probably the biggest element in drift fishing like this is going to be your leader. So right here, this is what I use, and this is what I swear by. Sigware Blue Label. Depending on the water clarity conditions and what you're fishing for, steelhead, or trout, it's going to depend on your pound test. So for steelhead, most trout fishing, I use 4 pound. If I can get away with using 6 pound, maybe the water's a little bit cloudy when I'm up steelhead fishing, I prefer to go with 6 pound when I'm steelhead fishing. You don't have to play the fish as much, a little bit easier to get them in. 4 pound can be fun. Now trout fishing, you can step that down to 2. So the nice thing about fluorocarbon, it is virtually invisible in the water. which is extremely good. But what you have to worry about when it comes to the fish seeing getting spooked is the line diameter. Right down there. Let's see if I can get old GoPro to focus here. That number right below your pound test. Lower your pound test when it comes to this particular line, the thinner it's going to be. The thinner it's going to be, the less shadow it's going to cast, because that's what the fish is going to see, and that's what's going to spook the fish, is the shadow that you cast, that this line leaves on the water. Alright. Second most important equation, your main line. I do a lot of center pin fishing. That is my main drift fishing method. This you can use with bait casting, spinning reel, or center pin. I prefer the Blood Run Tackle, and this is a 10-pound main line. It's a floating monofilament, so it's got some stretch to it. It is very, very tough stuff. Very excellent knot strength, and it's cheap too. I think it's only like maybe $12 for a spool of it. Yeah, you can't beat that. So this, we're gonna go forward from here, assuming that, you know, we're all well versed in our knot tying abilities. All right. So now what do we have next? We have the float. Another extremely important piece of the puzzle. I prefer to use, let's see here, they're Sheffield, yeah, crystal floats. So these are available in several different weight capacities, and there will be a number on this right below the name. This one is a 4-gram float. So the higher that number, the higher capacity it has for your tackle beneath it. Ideally, the only part you want sticking out of the water is maybe a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch below, or just to that orange line. If you don't have, this can work both ways. You want to use as little weight as possible. If there is not enough weight down below, or you have too big of a float, that float's going to sit on the surface like this, and it's not going to work as well. But if you're not using a big enough float, or you have too much weight, that float could either go submerge itself underwater, or you're only going to see the very tip. So this is all a very big balancing act. So when you get these, they usually come 2 to a pack. And I'll have links for all this stuff down in the description at the bottom of the video. You're going to want to grab, there's 2 different types of vinyl tubing in here. There's this very bright pink, and then there's this clear plastic, or rather clear vinyl. Alright. As for the leader length, I'm sorry for bouncing around here a little bit. You're going to want to run, I usually run, about 6 foot of leader. That is to get my main line as far away from my presentation as possible. So we're going to thread that through that purple, pink, whichever, and then we're going to put it through the clear. We're going to slide those guys up, past the swivel like that, and we're going to forget about them for a minute. Now, some would say this is going to be the most important part, probably the greatest importance other than your leader. I don't know about that. All I know is the smallest hook you can get away with is best. However, I've had mixed results. Once you get down to a certain size, this is size 12. I usually use size 14 to 16 if the water's pretty clear. I use a small hook when I'm fishing for trout or steelhead. A size 12 is what I would use after a rain event, a clearing up, or in the winter time when you get those beautiful green colored waters. Alright. So let's go through a little knot tying 101 here. It's a knot that I prefer. You're going to put your line up through the eye there. Pull it out. Grip your main line with your ring and pinky finger, your tag end with your thumb, your index finger, and just wrap it around. Alright, take the tag end, you're going to have a little loop left. You're going to stick it right through like that. I prefer to leave about a 1/4 inch along the shank of the hook like that. This works best if you dunk this in water. And then you're just going to pull that tight. Just like that. At that point you can then trim off your tag line, whatever's left there. So there we go. Now we have a hook on our leader line. Alright. And here we go into another environmental variable. Your weights. The size of your weights. How many weights you put on. So these are just basic split shot. They are Blackbird. They're going to come in BB sizes. I believe these are sizes 2 and 4. I can't remember exactly. But we'll get some out here and show you what we're dealing with. Alright. So we get in here and you can see we got a few different sizes. We got small ones and we got, look to be about twice the size of that, right? Alright, too good for this. So we're going to go with about 5 inches above the hook here. Put that on. There's our first one. Now you may have conditions where you may only have to run 3 or so split shots. For this, we're going to run 4 or 5. The second split shot, we're going to take and put probably about 4 inches up from that first one there that we had. About like that right there. Third one, and we're still sticking with that smaller size now. Third one, same thing, right about 4 inches up. Now we're going to step it up. We're going to step it up to the big one. We're going to use this big one, and we're going to make a little bit more of a gap, about 4 or 5 inches. This is what we're going to end up with. But right there, that's what we should look like. Alright, now we're going to go up and pay attention to this float here. Obviously, I'm just doing a little demonstration here. I don't have the full 6 feet worth of leader line, but the principle is going to be the same here. Wherever we have our float, some people thread it through here. I don't, because this gives me more adjustability. If I'm running an extremely deep pull and I need to get way down and I need to run up onto my main line, we'll slide that in. We got a clear one down here. And we're just going to get it up past that swivel there. Slide that on. And give it a pull. Just like that. I like to run a bigger weight, probably 1 to 2 inches below where my float is. So what that's going to do is to help keep that float upright in the water column. As such. That's basically it. This method is extremely effective in catching stubborn trout that maybe is a high pressure fishing spot that you're at. These fish are used to seeing, you know, rooster tails, people throwing thicker, you know, lines that the fish can honestly see. Fish are a lot smarter than you'd think. They know what to look for. They get spooked extremely easily. So this is a very stealthy approach that is extremely effective when it comes to targeting those little salmonoids. So I hope you enjoyed this how-to video. Please leave a like if you loved it. And if you want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Alrighty everybody, thank you for watching, and make it good.